Hi, this is Mike Buryk. I'm a member of the advisory board for the U.S.-Ukraine Foundation. I write a lot about tech startups in Ukraine, and also I do podcasting. Today's second IT tech session is about the tech ecosystem in Ukraine and some things that should be reformed. And we have a great panel group of people here to talk today, but I'd like to introduce the moderator, who is Charles Whitehead. He is the Myron C. Taylor Alumni Professor of Business Law at Cornell Law School and the founding director of the Law, Technology, and Entrepreneurship at Cornell Tech. And in Ukraine, he's the co-founder of the Aon Business Incubators. It is a premier tech incubation program funded by the USAID Competitive Economy Program. So Chuck, with that, I'd like to turn it over to you.
Great, thanks very much, Mike. So really we have a second to none panel today to talk about the ecosystem in Ukraine and also reforms. So what I'll do is briefly introduce everybody, and then I've got a series of sort of questions, just because there are so many good speakers and so many topics to cover in so little time, that I'm going to pose to everyone and ask them to kind of rank them from 1 to 5. So, but let me start off with the introduction. So we have Alex Borniakov, who is the Deputy Minister of Digital Transformation of Ukraine. He's also the head of the innovative Unit.City project. The great thing about Alex is, of course, not just that he's the Deputy Minister, but he has 10 years plus of experience in IT management. He founded and managed a number of successful companies, so he's one of us. And he's got a lot of real experience in this area. Before he segued over into government, he was considered to be a leading member. I think he received a Best CEO award even for his work in the tech sector. Second, we have Lenna Koszarny, who is the founding partner and CEO of Horizon Capital. She's also the executive vice president and really one of the leaders for Western NIS Enterprise Fund, which has it's $150 million US government sponsored fund, and really an important part of the ecosystem, not just in the tech area, but more generally in Ukraine. She's currently the chair of the American Chamber of Commerce in Ukraine. She was recently elected by a fairly prestigious magazine as the #2 Emerging Europe Female Business Leader for 2020. She's from Canada originally, but really Ukraine is her home. She's been there now for 26 years, and I know has plans to stay. Next, we've got Dominique Piotet. Dominique is a digital transformation expert. Really, he is currently the CEO of Unit.City, which is Ukraine's first innovation park. And as Dominique will tell you, it's going to soon become the largest park in Europe. And I think we all hope for that. But he brings a lot of his experience in the digital space. He has spent more than 20 years in the industry, in strategy, operations, all associated with digital transformation, working with smaller companies as well as with Fortune 500 companies. New to Kiev, I think Dominique has been there for what, about a year, a little bit over, but really an amazing addition to the ecosystem. And lastly, by the way, I'm doing this alphabetically. Lastly, we have Kira Rudyk. Kira is the head of the Holos Party. She's a member of the Ukrainian parliament, but she also comes out of the tech sector. She has worked with a number of civic and business organizations, including the American Chamber of Commerce in Ukraine, as well as the IT Ukraine Association. Prior to entering government, she was really one of the founders for Ring Ukraine, and eventually the CEO, and was a primary driver in making Ring Ukraine so successful. And of course, when Ring was acquired by Amazon, she was part of that transition effort. Also very, very much embedded in the ecosystem, very highly regarded, and someone who can span both the public and the private side of things. So again, this is a group that really is second to none in terms of the topic we're discussing. And so what I'll do is start off with a series of questions because we do have such a limited amount of time. There will be time after we've gone through this for each of the speakers to give their thoughts, to expand upon some of the topics we'll talk about. But the idea here is to get a baseline of views across all the panelists, where they agree, where they may disagree. Note here, when we're talking about tech, we're defining it broadly. It's not just IT, it's not just outsourcing, it also includes the hard sciences, and we're also looking at new businesses, startups, things that are being built in Ukraine. And so what I'm going to ask the participants to do is to basically rank things from 1 to 5 initially, 1 being bad, 5 being good. And I'll go through and we'll do this again. I think we'll just do this alphabetically. We'll go through and ask everyone to give their views. I'm sorry, Alex, it means you're first. We can do reverse alphabetically every now and then. But the idea is to get your sense of things, to get a baseline amongst the various participants on where they think things stand. So the first question, when we're talking about the ecosystem, both private and public, efforts to promote tech-based businesses, where do we think Ukraine was 5 years ago? So what do you, 1 being bad, 5 being excellent?
Yeah, I remember that. Look, well, I think it was bad. It was right the year after the war with Russia started. So people were living, moving. By that time, I was a CEO. I was running a company, and there was families that live in country, and some of the clients of the software outsourcing companies were just canceling contracts. So it was not a best year, I would say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Lenna.
I would give it a 3. I think the fact that everything that Alex just said is what was being experienced on the ground. And if I look at it, the reason why I give it a 3 is because against that backdrop, the fact that the tech industry was still a $2.7 billion industry, at the same time when you had a 16% GDP drop, you had inflation, combined inflation of close to 80%. The hryvnia had devalued relative to the US dollar by 3.5 times. And you had foreign currency reserves at 7.5 billion versus 26 now. Against that backdrop, the fact that the IT sector, which in 2003 was 110 million, was delivering a $2.7 billion industry is fantastic.
Great, thank you. Dominique.
Well, I will have to pass on this one because 5 years ago, I was in the middle of Silicon Valley. And to me, actually, Ukraine was non-existent. And that's why I would actually give it a 0 because Ukraine was not in the map in San Francisco 5 years ago. And I hope things have changed.
That's a great answer. Thank you. Kira?
So 5 years ago, I was a CEO of a smaller outsourcing company, and we obviously faced all the struggles that Alex was talking about. And I remember clients passing on us because it was Ukraine and it was associated with lots of threats. I remember people quitting because they wanted to leave the country. And it was like a complete downside from the business perspective. I would give it 2, just because there were still some upsides that we were able to talk about when we were trying to raise money or try to get people to invest into the projects I was working on. And we still had all the things that we will be talking about today. We still had an enormous amount of people who were technically educated. We still had the private entrepreneurs model that was not compromised at the time. And the reason why it's not 3, as Lenna said, that 5 years ago, there were so many interruptions from the governmental side to the way the company worked. It was so-called masks show when people, companies' work was interrupted by the local forces who would come in and try to search for whatever they would tried to find, which was basically down to getting a bribe. So that's why it is 2.
2. Okay, thank you. Same question. Where is Ukraine today? This one, Dominique, you can't duck. Alex, where is Ukraine today?
Well, relatively to 2015, it's much better. I wouldn't say it as I wouldn't give this 5 as excellent, but I would stick for the 4, and because as far as I know, the latest numbers of for last year about the growth year-over-year of IT industry was like around 30%. So I think that's the highest from starting from 2015, because I keep track of these numbers, and then it's growing. And personally, I have a completely another perception of the times. Look, there was a desperate times 5 years ago, and now I feel hope. I don't feel desperate anymore, and I see this in other people's thoughts and conversation. So definitely better.
Yeah, I'll say, for whatever it's worth, when I bring people to Ukraine, they are stunned. This is not the world they anticipated. Lenna?
I rank this as 4. I'd like to see higher than 5, more to grow into, but definitely 4. I remember when we looked at the IT ecosystem and government support, 0. We, incubators, accelerators, almost non-existent. Nothing like Unit.City even was a dream at that point. So I think that definitely we're seeing areas within the IT ecosystem that are growing, that have been launched, where you have accelerators, you have incubators, you have a huge commitment for Ukraine, for the Ukrainian Startup Fund that was launched. I remember going to Israel and begging every prime minister, president, everyone to follow that model, to put in a chief innovation minister or someone within the Ukrainian government who understood what IT was. I mean, in every single department, there was some guy sitting at the back of a ministry. And the fact that finally, we have over a year ago a Ministry of Digital Transformation. We have a minister, we have deputy ministers who've come in from the government, from private sector into the government. We have people in parliament who understand tech. We have a young president who openly says that he wants the next unicorns to be launched in Ukraine, which is completely different. Nobody ever talked that way before. When the president himself says, I don't want people to get on a plane, take their computer and go develop their businesses elsewhere. I want them to do it in Ukraine. When you see Ukraine 45th in the Global Innovation Index, ahead of India, ahead of many other countries that are known for innovation. Those are real numbers. So definitely 4 and room to grow.
Great, thank you. Dominique.
Well, I don't like rules, Chuck, so I'm gonna go outside of the rule, and I would give it a 5.5. But I'm gonna tell you why. The question is really about private and public efforts to promote tech-based business. And when I see the amount of efforts, I am blown away. Look, we have, and Alex, it's not to pat you on the back, but we have a young government, a deputy prime minister in charge of digital transformation. That's pretty high, in the hierarchy of a government. Like that's close to the sky. In charge of that. With extremely talented young people, people like Kira, moving from a company to go into parliament to shake things and move things. I'm sorry you guys are here and I'm saying great things about you, because this is what I think. And I'm French. I come from France, and the guy in charge of digital in the French government is not even a minister. Is probably maybe not the lowest in the hierarchy of the government, but like really close to it. And so the efforts this country is putting in promoting tech-based ecosystem is amazing. 3 years ago, Unit.City was not existing. And look where we are right now. We already have 110 companies and 3,000 people coming and working every day. And we're the fastest and the biggest construction site in Kyiv. Look at all those amazing startups. The panel right before us, Reface. They just raised money from Andreessen Horowitz. This is the most competitive VC firm in the world. So look, guys, I think 5.5. Keep going though.
Okay, and you know, recognizing inflation, Kira.
Okay, I would give it like 4.5, just because I work by the rules, unlike Dominique. So it's 4.5. We really have made like lots of progress as a country, and you said the right thing. We are here to shake things up. So every time we see some achievements during the previous year, we think, okay, let's see what we can do next year. So something that was previously unspeakable or previously unbelievable to happen in Ukraine in terms of transformation, building ecosystem, establishing governmental versus private sectors, mutual support and interaction. That should happen next year. We have seen really great growth from year to year. For the previous years, we understand that 2020 really wouldn't be an exceptional one here, but we also understand that for all of us, we'll have like a great chance for 2021 to show unbelievable results. And these are not just words. We are seeing that IT is the second export industry in Ukraine for the amount of money bringing into to the country. You can imagine Ukraine is agricultural country where the tech is uprising industry that is growing so fast. So the goal, and I know that here we have me, as for me, for the member of parliament, and Oleksandr as the deputy minister of digital transformation, the goal is to have the growth not 30%, but much more, 40, 50. Like the goal was 70, but I think now we have the coronavirus inflation, so we will be fine with 50. So if we're comparing 5 years ago to now, not even the efforts, but the results are talking for themselves. $5 billion in last year for Ukraine, for the tech industry, and more coming. These are fantastic results, and we understand that with the right and combined and joint work for the next year, we'll be able to achieve even more.
Great, thank you. This next question has a little bit of a background to it. So I'm going to go with the basic assumption, which is certainly based on my experience. I think it's grounded in fact. I know it's the experience of our panelists, that Ukraine has a high level of education, proficiency not just in the IT space, but other technologies. Some of Ukraine's technologies are the best in the world. The people that are in this industry in Ukraine are creative, they are hardworking, and Ukraine does have the mix, the ingredients to become a globally competitive tech economy. With that as background, where do we think Ukraine is today in achieving its full potential in 5 to 7 years? Now on this one, guys, just for timing, and we're gonna give you time to talk. I'd like you to just simply give me your number, where things stand, just so we have the baseline, and we'll come back in a few moments and have you speak. In fact, what I'll probably do is skip the other questions and just let you all talk, just to keep things within the time. So starting with that, Alex, what number would you give this?
Well, I think also 4.
4, okay. Okay, now we'll get back to you in a second. Let's just set the line on this one. Lenna?
All right, sure.
3 because I believe we're still ground floor and we have enormous potential. This can be a 5 to 10x industry in the future.
Okay. Dominique?
I would give it a 3 as well.
Okay, good. And Kira?
I agree with the number 3. It says that we completed a lot and we are in a good ground right now, but we also have like a great potential.
Okay, thank you. Now, what we were going to do is do some more questions, but actually, just from a timing standpoint, let me just switch out of this and instead give each of our speakers time to actually expand on this last point, because I think that's kind of key and central to what we're here to talk about today. So just from a timing standpoint, I think, Mike, if we do 6 minutes from everybody, are we still okay for time?
I think we're good, Chuck.
Okay, good. So we'll do 6 minutes for everybody. And again, I have the magic card. So when you have a minute to go, you'll see it, just because we're tight for time. So we'll start with Alex. Alex, why don't you give us your thoughts on sort of where things are, where things need to go? What's good, what could be improved? Please.
Well, yeah, there's really a lot of room for improvement, and but in Ukraine, it's been for years that specifically software outsourcing part was doing, I think it was doing great, and it's still doing great. I think that's good for Ukraine, and it's really big achievement that Ukrainian engineers work for the projects, for the companies from Fortune 500, for a lot of them. And I'm really proud that so many things being done in Ukraine that people all around the world using every day in terms of software, from applications to the enterprise software for the huge corporations. And with being that said, they have gotten so much experience and they have so much potential in doing something bigger and even maybe doing their own stuff. So that's a really great start. In the same time, maybe what requires a lot of improvement is that Ukraine was just in the people minds. It's a country with a lot of risk, where I don't want to put my money. I can give job for that, but I don't want to put my money. And Ukrainians with entrepreneurship spirit, they were forced to kind of move out of the country if they want to build something big. Of course, there are a lot of exceptions, and of course, some stories are being built, still being built from Ukraine. But unfortunately, most of those stories are, even though people stay in Ukraine, they incorporate in somewhere else. So that's something that we really want to change. And I see that in 5-7 years, we can kind of switch to the different model. And maybe that wouldn't be popular thought, but I'm thinking that COVID kind of will help us, because what I see now, well, first of all, COVID make IT and remote work based on IT solutions like more significant, more important. But there's another thing that I observe right now, that a lot of countries become more economically protective. So there's a protectionist policies, like protection policies of their own interest arising. And for instance, yesterday I met a guy. I didn't know about that. So I met a guy from Romania. He's from Germany, and he told me that Romania has actually started implementing something similar to Unit.City. So a lot of countries, and I haven't heard about this before. So and he considering moving to Romania, by the way. So anyway, but he was in Kiev, and he was really also stunned by this amazing city and amazing people. So that's so now he's in doubt. Anyway, so I think that COVID will help to kind of reshift the whole idea of people moving around the world. And with that, I think the potential that we can create, and I think we can do it in 5-7 years. We can create an environment for those companies, for those people with entrepreneurship spirit to stay in the country and have a corporation vehicle, investment vehicle, in terms of legislation, in terms of taxes, tax incentive, and many other things that they require. So we can make Ukraine fully compatible with the rest of the world, so we can talk the same language with Western world. That's I think the chance that we have. And another thing that we can kind of improve, and I see that also rising, and this is, by the way, among of my tasks when I came to this position, it's kind of changed the perception of Ukraine for the immigrants, and make moving to Ukraine and settle here process easier, settling process make easier. So and you know, for the first time in the history of Ukraine, when this things in Belarus started, we I think for the 5 years we have gotten people coming to Ukraine, not coming out. So that's terrific news, and we did a lot to make it happen, and we'll make more. I think we will become like immigrants friendly, because Ukraine before it was not immigrant friendly at all. So so to summarize, two things I see that in 5-7 years will be really compatible with their digital infrastructure of the world. It's in some sense will be even better than a lot of countries with digital passports, with all these digitalization plans that we have going paperless. And another thing, that we become immigrant friendly, so people will move to Ukraine, not outside. So that's would be my thoughts.
Can I suggest? Thank you. This is great. Thank you. Can I suggest 30 seconds on just Unit.City, since I mean, we're familiar, but I'm not sure if the audience is all familiar with this. Just an overview of what it is.
Oh yeah, sure. So that's the project the we currently working on. So this is a kind of virtual economic zone. This, if just I explain it in simple terms, it's a virtual economic zone. When I say virtual, I mean that we don't stick to the certain territory. It's so you just register online, and you get to the list of the companies that is under the work on the Unit.City project terms, and you get tax incentive, you get like protection from the government, investment tools, and a lot of other benefits that allow you to conduct this IT business from Ukraine very easy, and I think with the lowest tax rates in the whole region, maybe not even in the world.
Okay, great. Thanks very much. Lenna?
Yeah, thanks, Chuck. So look, I think context is everything. And, you know, you mentioned about Western NAS. We got our start investing, managing Western NAS, 150 million. Then in 2005, we spun out, raised 700 million. And really in 2012, that's when we started to invest in tech. And now it's the lion's share of our portfolio. So we're likely the largest tech investor in the country. We put it over 200 million to work. We will put another 100 million over the next year or so. And for us, I mean, this has been an amazing wave. It's exciting to be here based on the ground. And I guess, you know, what do I think of? What keeps me awake at night? What do I think in terms of the industry? Look, you can't ignore the COVID backdrop. You can't ignore the fact that we started the year, you know, 10 countries that were in recession, and now we have 170 that are in depression or recession. Emerging economies are doing better. Lots of, you know, Western developed nations are in depression. And I think that you have across the globe, every single president, prime minister, cabinet, you know, parliaments, they're all thinking, how do I get my people out of this ditch quickly? How do I get foreign direct investment in? How do I make this exciting and competitive? You know, you have next door, we're beside Poland, that is branding itself as Tiger of the East, that has, you know, Ukrainians are the #1 buyers of real estate right now in Poland. You know, they've just introduced an exit capital tax starting January 1st. We talk about this here, but they've done it. You know, that's what I worry about, is that we can't rest on our laurels. We can't look backwards and say, hey, you know, we've got a $5 billion industry. We're right next door to EU with 900,000 empty vacancies. And all of us know the people who are, you know, who are thinking about going to Romania or Poland, or thinking, hey, I'll do Poland. That's where I'm going to, you know, I'll have the IP in the States. I'll have the, you know, I'll live in Poland. I'll have a lower value add in Ukraine. And I don't want that for Ukraine. You know, for Horizon, our decisions are made here. We make a point of scouring the globe for Stanford MBAs, for Harvard MBAs, for Wharton, and bringing them back to Ukraine. Our decisions are made here, our investment decisions. We have no headquarters except in Kiev. So, you know, for us, I don't want to see Ukraine be a low value processor, a low value exporter of grains, a low value exporter of brains, a low value exporter of, you know, work, manufacturing work. I want to see value captured here in Ukraine. I want to see, you know, I want to see this industry grow big, for the startups, the IP to be in this region. I want to see people, and I think that's what the ministry is trying to do, is to try to find ways to protect this community and to encourage it to grow. And, you know, I guess that's more kind of an impassioned plea, but I don't think we can rest on our laurels. I think we have to look at this special situation that we have in Ukraine that really grew with limited oversight intervention from the passion and smarts of people in Kharkiv and Lviv and Odessa and Kiev, all over the country. And these people are the people that either are starting the product platforms or starting the outsourcing, or you know, interested in expanding and bringing in R&D centers into the country, etc. So I think we have to do everything possible for these people to stay and to grow their businesses here, and not to disrupt the special something that exists in Ukraine. In fact, we could export that special something to other countries. You know, Chuck and I have talked a great deal about capital markets, energy, commodities markets. Why not have that here in Ukraine? Why not capture that value here in Ukraine and not export it into another country, and be proud when we help other countries rise? I guess the last thing that I do want to say is that it's a concerted effort. It's all of the members in the ecosystem. It's Dominique with what he's doing at Unit.City. It's Chuck, myself, Alex with what we're doing at, you know, Ukrainian Startup Fund, which is incredibly important. $3 million already that has gone into startup community. How many guys? 77 startups so far. I mean, these are people who never believed that they would get $1 of grant money, and they're getting $25,000 grants, $50,000 grants, and building their businesses here. So, you know, I think it's important to do everything possible to ensure that this industry grows, develops, and that we do that hand in hand between business, government, various stakeholders. And I think it will be an incredible success.
Great, thank you. Yeah, if I were to summarize some of this, you know, regulatory and government involvement critical. The things that Alex was describing quite important. Tax incentives, the setup of a Dia-City type platform. But at the same time, we don't want to overreach, if you will, right? It's more of a setting up the framework for real growth, but really looking to set it up so that there's private sector growth, and private sectors the private sector is largely driving the engine. Is that a fair way of summarizing this?
You know, I would add the backdrop of COVID. I think that's a game changer. It changes everything. It makes people think, I want to be closer to my family, and also think I want to be living somewhere else in a market that I can easily go out the door, and I'm not, you know, I can't get there by plane, you know, like you could you couldn't in the last year. So look, I think people are going to look long and hard on where they want to live, where they want to grow their business. Rule of law has to be a common denominator, and these people are going to be courted by every country in this globe.
They're being courted now, absolutely.
Yeah, but even more so.
Yeah, I know Alex is going to have to leave. He's got a prior commitment. I just wanted to mention this before we bring in Dominique. Dominique, don't be upset. He's not protesting or something. He just. So Dominique, why don't you give us your thoughts?
Great. Well, what an amazing and large question, and I have so many things to say. The first thing I want to say is, and I'm saying this because I think we have a tendency to look at ourselves and to forget a little bit, and actually Lenna mentioned this, to look at outside. Guys, the world is moving super fast. Nobody's waiting for us. Actually, I mean, when I look at what's going on, I see opportunities, but I also see a lot of questions. When I look at what's happening right now in Silicon Valley with COVID and with other things, Silicon Valley is not that sexy anymore. And all of a sudden, it's not the best ecosystem to grow and develop your company because of the prices, because of many, many things. And we start to see companies like Tesla, like Oracle, like HP say that, well, maybe we should live. So nothing is for granted. The second thing is I think tech is an incredibly competitive business. And it's coming from the US, it's also coming from China, and we see how much those companies actually are under pressure from their own government, from other government. Look, I see a real opportunity here. The third thing to me that is important is what makes an ecosystem a great ecosystem. It's actually something I'm absolutely obsessed about because this is what we're trying to do at Unit.City. And to me, there's a few components. One of them is talent. We already talked about it. I think we all are working really hard. Government, public sector, parliament, school, initiatives everywhere. Amazing. There's funding. Guys, we're still struggling with funding. And I'm going to add a layer to this. It's not only funding, it's VC funding. So it's something that is by essence risky. If on top of that risk, you add a layer of uncertainty that is from outside because of the economic environment, because the government is doing a poor job, because whatever reason, then funding is not going to come. And you guys, I remember a conversation we had a year ago in Davos, and it was not one conversation, it was maybe 200 conversations at Ukraine House Davos, where we talked about what we call the 3 C's, about what Ukraine is known for: corruption, Crimea, Chernobyl. How do we change this narrative? And guys, in a year, I'm sorry to tell you, and I'm very worried about this, we've done nothing. We made 3 steps in advance and we moved back 2. So maybe we made 1 step, but the world is not moving, and the tech world is not moving at that pace. I will always remember the visit of Jack Ma to Ukraine, actually a year ago. And he visited the president, prime minister, government, Unit.City. And when I welcomed him, he told me, looking at Unit.City, he told me, what you've achieved in 3 years is amazing. If I come back in 3 years and you have not changed anything, you have done nothing. And not to put pressure, but I feel that we are moving too slow. We need to move faster because the world is moving faster, and the world after COVID is going to move even faster, and we need tech. We really need tech. The third component, I think, to a great tech ecosystem is the mindset, is a culture. And this is something we need to work on. There is an amazing mindset in Silicon Valley. Everybody knows it. Actually, I always tell people, Silicon Valley is not a model for investment, because what they do only work in Silicon Valley, thank God. But Silicon Valley is an amazing model for mindset. for the mindset, entrepreneurial mindset. Let's move them forward. We need to see more entrepreneurs quicker, faster, with more money, with more investment, who are willing to conquer the world. And I think what Lenna mentioned, for example, the Ukraine State Fund is an amazing thing. It's a drop of water in an ocean. It's only $3 million. We need more of that. So I'm extraordinarily optimistic by nature. I see the potential, the amazing potential of Ukraine, because Ukraine has something that very few other have, is that quality of talent. And if you don't have it, you will never have it. You can bring fun, you can buy fun, you can attract fun. If you don't have the people, you will never have the people. And so I think we need, and that's kind of my message, we need to move faster and we need to change the storytelling. I am tired, guys, of hearing my friends from LA, from San Francisco, telling me, you moved to Ukraine, you're crazy. No, I'm not crazy. I'm smart. I see the light. But you know what? It's exactly what Jack Ma again told me when he started Alibaba in 1999 in his bedroom. There was no internet in China. There was no payment system in China. There was no delivery system. That looks like a bad idea. Guess what? It's Alibaba. So we see the light. We have to show that to the rest of the world. And that's it. Finish.
I just want to add, though, we have 15 million for Ukrainian Startup Fund, 3 million dispersed in 1 year. And Dominique, you should start a VC fund. We need more people like you with the passion you have as VC investors.
Thank you, Lenna.
Good. Yeah, no, I mean, I think a fund makes a lot of sense. Kira, last but not least, again, this is all alphabetical. Please, your thought.
So I would like to share a couple of stories from my previous and current backgrounds with you guys on the topic. The first one was the time of the Amazon acquisition of Ring. We had 1,000 people in Kiev office. At that time, it was middle of 2018. We have grown from 3 people to 1,000 people in 3 years, 1,000 engineers. It is unbelievable to any other country. And we were in the midst of the due diligence process. By that time, Amazon made a snapshot of how the market looks and how Ukraine looks to them. And whatever they shared with us, I can share with you now. Things are very obvious and they haven't changed in these years. They're good things, and that's basically why they acquired Ring and Ring Ukraine within it, were that we in Ukraine have fantastic talent. We are super integrated into global context. It's our great advantage in comparing with, for example, Pacific countries, right? We have really low taxation. We really shy about it, but it is true for the business purposes. And the last but not the least is the flexibility of how the IT market works. And this is super important, especially for the big corporations that were bringing and investing money in Ukrainian markets. Flexibility. We can scale fast. We can go down fast if we need to. We would not be able to grow the company as fast in 3 years from 3 to 1,000 people if there were not a private entrepreneurship model that is not only allows people to make their choices fast, but also allows company to show really good growth that would not be possible if we would be following the regular labor laws. They were very open about it. And then they would be saying some dark sides of Ukrainian market and ideas of how to overcome them. And the first, and I'm sorry that Alex is not here anymore, is the uncertainty of the business and government interaction. Everybody who is talking to me about Ukraine is asking, is the private entrepreneurship legal? Is it considered legal? And the only thing that really businesses want is the check mark from the government saying, yeah, we are fine with it. Go ahead, guys. You have made such a great progress with the industry without any help. Just go ahead and move forward. Second would be the point of the IP protection that is easily fixed by the laws that we voted for, and some of the reforms that are coming up. And that's it. That's really, they're not talking about the war. They're not talking about any other downsides. They're saying we are fine with investing more into Ukraine if there are these two main issues resolved. So this is the first story. The second would be when I realized that with the current set of things, it will be very hard for me personally to have another success story, same as we had with Amazon and Ring. And that there will be a need for really system changes and systematic changes in our country, so we would be able to bring more big companies, more big techs into Ukraine. That would be a solution for people leaving, because they are not always leaving for other countries just because they want to leave. They sometimes reach the glass ceiling when they have, well, I have worked in all outsourcing. I'm not feeling like a startup person. I want to grow. I want to learn from the best. And this is what the big tech corporations could be bringing in. And now, if we are working good with the IP side of the things, the second one is the certainty of the business and governmental relations. And this is why I figured out that the best way for me to ensure it, and the best way for me personally to work on it, would be just get myself into the parliament and solve it from the other side. And this is what we are working on, trying to do. The step one is all agree on the way how the things work right now, and then encourage the system to develop more. Then the third story, this is the funny one. You know, the first time when Amazon the top level management came to Ukraine, they all asked if they need like a 24-hour security. And it was so painful for me that they would even think about it. And then, like a year after, when so many people from different departments of the company would be coming to Ukraine, seeing it as a tech country, as a country with like enormous amount of startups, big companies, representatives, they would be laughing at themselves. But this means that we should be doing much better job in promoting Ukraine as a tech country, promoting Ukraine as a country that has this huge, fantastic potential. So then we would not only be finding people who will be supporting us outside, but also people who would already understand this as a new reality, that Ukraine is a tech country that is developing and moving forward. Thank you so much. Chuck, we cannot hear you.
Sorry, you know, for a tech guy, I'm really bad at this. And I have to tell you, the first time I was coming to Ukraine, a friend of mine who was formerly of the FBI said the same to me. He said, I better have 24-hour security with me. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. So it's definitely a perception issue.
On all of us to change this perception.
Yeah, it's definitely a perception issue. And I think we're at the end of our time. I will say, with a panel like this and the people who are on this panel who are passionate about this and focused and looking for change, you know, accelerating over the next 3 to 4 years, I think the perception will change. The more people that come to Kiev, Kharkiv, Lviv, Odessa, the more people who actually walk around on the streets, the more you begin to feel that change. And so I'm quite optimistic about it. And having heard all of you, thanks very much for joining us. Thanks for, actually, all of you are in Ukraine, both the listeners as well as the panelists. Thanks for doing it so late. And I'm looking forward in 3 or 4 years to thanking you for all the effort to get Ukraine where it needs to be.
And Chuck and panelists, on behalf of the U.S.-Ukraine Foundation, I want to thank all of you for participating in a very insightful discussion today on what's needed in the tech ecosystem in Ukraine.